It's a great honour for me. Tom Munley once said to me, if you're ever going to say something important, write it out. Don't rely on ad-lib. So unlike Dermot, I'm going to read what I have to say. It's a great honour for me to have been asked by the board to give this a verbal tribute to Nicholas Carolan, a person for whom I have the highest of regard and respect and admiration. It wasn't specified by the board what I should say, but I take it that this is what is called an encomium, what the dictionary specifies as a laudatory ode, a formal expression of warm or high praise. So that's what it will be. I could take any direction for this appreciation. For Nicholas's life, there are so many significant achievements. His establishment and running of ITMA are, of course, the most profound among these. But there's also his personal research, editing and publication, and not least his other life in television broadcasting. Something that was so logical and appropriate, since it is transmission that is the very stuff of traditional music. Indeed, his programme made him a star, so to speak. For walking along the street with him, you find that the turned heads let you know where most people spent their Friday evenings. And even where this was not informed knowledge, without doubt it marked a subliminal awareness of and validation for Come West Along the Road, the programme. But Nicholas also has much stopping in the street, handshaking and praise, a lot of it, intrusion, if you like, by genuine, passionate well-wishers with whom he deals courteously. The exception was one occasion when by chance myself and himself went for a drink in the hotel down the street here, where a Fianna Fáil fundraising function happened to be in progress. And I wonder that Nicholas did not spontaneously combust when a senior politician who was introduced to him exclaimed, "Oh, the Kelly man, the Kelly man." Nicholas's view of the genre under his care, of course, stretches considerably further than such a narrow perspective. It stems from a deep respect for endeavour and passion in traditional music, which is directed that he put on the record a huge spectrum of musicians from all social classes and all parts of the island, from America, England, and from Scotland. This has involved caring about personality, about contexts, communities, and rights, and has demanded rigour, fastidiousness, tenacity, and often just sheer nerve. His ear has always been to the ground, seeking out, establishing contact, and opening up. Simultaneously, his brief dictated that he put in place a staff and a premises to make nebulous contacts solid and meaningful and their artistic endeavour consultable. This demanded business acumen, library skills, fundraising, days and weeks of stressful form filling, lobbying, and even harassing politicians, etc., where necessary. In that regard, we must consider and appreciate and value the immense support he enjoyed from his life partner and wife, Maeve, who we missed greatly on this occasion, and for whom we must be saddened that she could not see this day. It might appear at times that those of us who know Nicholas personally take all of these things for granted. This is at least partly on account of his generosity of spirit, for despite the fact that he was, quote unquote, never off the television, he has not been a pushy, demanding, or egotistical person, but has in fact been quite a man of the people in his field, generous with his knowledge and observation. This recalls for me another honour I was given in doing a similar appreciation for Tom Munley's Fish Drift volume, edited by Anne Clune in 2007. In that I addressed Tom's reluctance to be regarded as an academic, despite the fact that he worked for a university. True to form, it was both laudatory and paradoxical that when Tom was eventually proposed for an honorary master's, he held out for the doctorate. This was not just perverse, because Munley saw his honour as a public accolade for the song and music he represented, as well as for the volume, dedication, and precision of his personal work. It is highly commendable, gratifying, and in the spirit of traditional music, appropriate that Nicholas would sing from more or less the same culturally conditioned, aesthetic, egalitarian ballad sheet as Tom Munley, even if he comes from a different background. Both of them, in the spirit of that other great ideologue of the music, Brendan Branagh, shared belief in the primacy of the practice of the art form, the history of which they serviced. The trajectories of these three associates run parallel and crisscross at key points over the years of what was and still is the revival, or the reappreciation of and making accessible of the various dimensions of traditional music culture. Like Tom Munley, Nicholas Carolan has had an informed caution with regard to state institutions and their bureaucracies as well. For coming from inside education, Nicholas has been alert not only to its amazing facilitative power, but also to its inappropriateness at certain times. But, like Branagh too, Nicholas also has believed and demonstrated how vital it is to have the state as an ally in such an important musical endeavour as this. As was Tom Munley too, I knew nothing of Nicholas for the first 25 years of my life in music. This was, I think, because he'd been moving in from another flank, to use the military analogy. In my case, I'd progressed from self-taught player through competition sessions, professional playing, into teaching, compiling a tutor, and then, finding that I had raised only nothing but questions, I moved into research and analysis, which I found suggested that maybe everything I had previously thought of as real was in fact just a diaphanous myth. My certainty about traditional music in Ireland was wonderful, yes, but it was like a cobweb jewelled with dew in the early morning sunlight, quite invisible in the multi-directional light of the day. Nicholas had a different prism. He was not so distracted by the devil may-care-ness of performance and the impatience to learn tunes, but focused on exploring the what, the where, the why not, the what not, from where, why, the when, all those questions that need to be asked and are answered on the walls around you. Yet I have subsequently heard Nicholas sing, and he has enthusiastically attended, as they say in Armagh, everything bar the crib. And he has also been an enthusiastic fiddle player for a decade or more, maybe more for all I know. Maybe the archive impelled him, like the metamorphic bicycle seat in Flann O'Brien's Third Policeman, the music energy that saturates each floor, room, cabinet and drawer and press of this huge building, passing by osmosis into his physical being. Maybe also it appeared only right that one in his position should understand the feel of music, be able to practice what he preached. Not the non-performance, if that be a deficiency at all, as Tom Munley would never miss the opportunity to remark, not that non-performance has ever presented a certain other ideologue from pontificating on what is best for traditional music. But Nicholas's journey has been predominantly one of identifying, seeking out, recording, collecting, protecting and preserving the print, acetate, plastic and electronic artifacts which hold and collectively are the personalities, repertoire, style and substance of the genre we call Irish traditional music. It is an amazing concept in this regard, perhaps, that the earliest hard documents we have on the historic style of Irish music are in fact in the form of empty space. The narrow weaving longitudinal gap cut in concentric circles into a flat disc, which on an LP is about half a kilometre long. Prunchas O'Connellan, from the same locality as myself in County Armagh, brought this vividly to mind to me once by describing that when field recording on acetate discs, Roddy O'Byrne's machine physically cut out and removed this groove as a long, continuous spiralling thread of acetate. At the end of the day, there was a ball of it like a tumbleweed, rather like a rolled up sound wave, I thought, to which the technician would then apply a match, sending up a momentary whoosh of flame. Burning music, perhaps, but what was left behind the empty groove, that was the cultural record. What was removed in order to create it was waste. I use that image and statistic as a metaphor for academic questing. Similar data shows that on a hard drive, of which there are plenty here, which is for now the standard archiving medium, though there is no abrasive needle, a digital recording's microns pass under the reading head at 232 kilometers per hour. That geekish statistic and analogy, however, highlight the level of abstraction that recording is now at, and therefore how fragile it is. It underlines two questions that challenge Nicholas as a pioneering archivist in the span of his work at ITMA. Since all media are perishable, how long can a recording be kept for? How long will it last? And since cultural values and public acclaim dictate what to preserve, how wide should the selection net be cast? I read once about a hill-walking art critic in Spain who spotted Pablo Picasso chalking out a draft of a stage backdrop on a huge flat rock. The tourist was horrified when it started to rain and speculated about trying to cover up the artwork with bushes and coats. Picasso just shook his head and walked away. For him, the image was like a music performance. Nicholas's task in the archive has not been to keep what fashion or entertainment world may regard as financially valuable. His role has been to preserve the potential which is embodied in recordings and print as resources so that it can be done again and continue to be done. But his job has also been, in a way, to worry about the rain. The rain could be material, fire, flood, or electrical hazard, or it could be ephemeral, a financial crisis, or a political decision. In this, he has had to embrace all levels of technology, and today has digital storage which demands multiple layers of backup machinery and facilities, an industry in itself. But in addition to this sound and style resource, the archive under Nicholas's direction has assembled a formidable collection of texts. They're all around us here at the moment. Each of these contributes to a vast potential in thinking, imagining and reinterpretation. Ideas, histories, lyrics, notation, context, promotion materials, all of which collectively summon up an instant three-dimensional reconstruction of era, place, circumstance, occasion, energy and ethos. And what makes these printed pages most valuable to the record of Irish music tradition is the fact that the reason they are there is an account of the music still being performed, a performed artistic medium, enthusiastically recreated and reinterpreted casually, and often with little obvious sentiment or apparent awareness of aesthetic value, let alone uniqueness. It could be argued that if the music is lived in, as it is, then what need is there for keeping so much in an archive? But one trembles at the memory of the Meath councillor who, in supporting a motorway being gouged through Tara, said, "Sure, it's all only pots and pans, pots and pans." And indeed, the Arts Council once had a policy which refused to support traditional music because it was still being played for that very reason. Yet by the 1970s, the Arts Council had accepted that people do change tastes, move on, so stuff could still be left behind and lost, therefore had to be preserved. Already in the first 60 years of post-World War II revival, we witnessed huge changes not only in popular music preferences, but in traditional music tastes and practices among ourselves. The archive is therefore there to protect us from our own innate whimsical cultural self-destructiveness, just as various societies preserve landscapes, coasts, towns, streets, buildings and interiors, knowledge of the past, languages, artworks and literature. And two, while the human species may be marked by having culture, it's also noted for dumping things in response to economic imperatives and opportunities, while paradoxically putting a great value and needing to know exactly where it all came from, having maps, genealogies, geographies and histories. The traditional music archive, therefore, despite the shaky nature of civilization at the present time, is likely to persist, carrying forward the timeline of Irish music tradition. Nicholas Carolan has been not just its custodian, but he's been carrying on a baton shaped by Brandon Bannock, perhaps. With this baton, he has beaten, B-A-T-O-N, he has beaten off detractors, faced down dismissal and cultural arrogance, he has challenged mealy-mouthed compromise, while simultaneously lobbying successfully for state backing. Half a loaf has not been his motto, nor has been the concept of the sliced pan been to his liking either, despite the similarity to the concertina. He has aimed at and held out for the unsweetened raw grain, and under his scientific, intellectual direction, we have in this honeycomb box of brick, plastic and steel nothing less than a holy grail, if you like, a holy grail of precious substance, which is not only a confident past artistry, but also acknowledges a multifaceted pedigree, borrowings and impositions, rejections and reprogramming. Look at the modern literature here on the shelves and you'll see, reflected back, awareness of change as a process, tradition as a process, the opening of eyes that endless historical impositions, pragmatism, survival and collisions generate. In this context, it may be a wonder, but it is immensely gratifying that Nicholas, like Tom Munley, was awarded an honorary doctorate. And Nicholas's case for a body of work which effectively may well surpass the collective traditional music research produced by all Irish universities over the last century. My own timeline intersects with Nicholas's with the opening of this archive in the 1980s, a period which I and many others began to need information. I see in his work the same intensity, dedication and often humour that many of us were so deeply affected by in Brandon Bannock, in whom, for the first time, I met him while a teenager in the 1960s, in whom I could see an intense, informed pride in Irish music, a passion for its maintenance and a deep respect for its past performers. It is in those now gone stylistic performers that the archive implies that we invest traditional music with plain peopleness, so to speak, to make up a word there. For as Hugh Shields once remarked, this music is neither mere ancestral pop, nor is it arbitrarily or politically preserved pastness. It is a folk music which is infused with ethos and artistry of the pre-16th century harp music, the highest evolved form of music expression in its time. That residue may only be expressed inconsistently, but it is there. It is distinctive, and it is something which alone demands looking after. The fact that today's plain people appear to care little for the music, living more easily instead with the simplistic, ubiquitous or sentimental popular music. This only emphasises that social class as such has not been the issue in traditional music, but interest in the music is a factor. Past generations may have been poor and without property, but their intellectual material had the same potential as it still has today. We have always had alert and creative minds in music composition, and what this archive preserves as a comprehensive resource is the material record of the Irish people's aesthetic sensibility, functional creativity and cultural consistency. Nicholas Carolan's parting gift to us all is access to all of this, through the thousands of kilometres of music vibrations on disc and tape, the infinite cloud of digital reserves, and forests worth of words from the past and present. He has secreted this from the ever-modernising world which would, if left alone, have misled it or even dumped it. We here today and interminable generations to come are enabled to use these resources as a lifeline via Nicholas's legacy institution. A lifeline so that we may be able to feel traditional music's vibrations fresh forever in our ears and under our fingers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fintan. That's exactly what I was going to say.